UTC. Good morning, Nick here. It's pretty early. It's only like 5:30 a.m. in Dallas. And again, because of my shoulder, I'm still sleeping in a freaking reclining chair. And you can only sit in a darn chair for so many hours before it's just like, I gotta get the heck out of this chair. So, yeah, I'm up every morning at 5-ish. Go to get my coffee. And I get to come in and play with some radios before the sun comes up, which is like the best time to listen to distant broadcasts. So according to the SWL app, this is the voice of the people being brought. It's called a clandestine radio station broadcasting out of near Seoul, South Korea, targeted to North Korea. And I've been listening to it every morning. I come in just, see if I can get it. And obviously you can't really hear, not that I could speak Korean, but you can something's there and it's not being jammed and it's getting picked up. And I'm using my Wellbrook outside. And anyway, but I don't know if I mentioned, by the way, good morning, this is Nick here. But so I if you watch any of my previous videos, you know that I'm trying to make some room and reorganize for the boat anchor collection I just bought. It's still probably a few weeks away from being here. So I use that opportunity to reorganize my actual office. This is where I work and do my job, trying to make money to pay for my bad habits. And if you're really paying attention to my channel, thank you if you are. But you'll notice that the last time I was in my office, I had the Kenwood 5000 on top of a JRC 525, and then over here I had a Grundig Satellite 2000. And all three of those radios are awesome, and I enjoyed them all very much. And then I'm reorganizing, and I'm like, I need to get the Teletron in here, because this is like, it's pretty much one of my favorite radios, but it also might be the best. But when you say the best, it's like, best for what? Okay. And then that's one reason why I'm doing this right now. This is a Drake R8B. If you paid close attention to this signal when we just played it, this was reproducing that signal, if that's the right terminology, or this was giving me that signal, in my opinion, slightly better than the Teletron. They're both on the same antenna working through a Stridesburg multicoupler. And I attribute that to the Drake, they're being set up exclusively for shortwave listening. It wasn't designed for the Army to use to try to get, small, weak signals and catch bad guys, or, or stop people from shooting bombs at you, or whatever this radio was designed for in Germany back in the 1980s. All right. And this Drake sure doesn't have a perpetual motion machine. All right. And if you don't know what I mean when I say that, just watch. All right, we'll come back in a half an hour when that thing's still going. All right? Yeah. All right, the Drake sure doesn't have one of those. But the Drake has an excellent AM sync, and the Drake engineers were smart enough to know that a 4 kilohertz bandwidth filter is optimum for weak shortwave listening. You go much smaller than 4 kilohertz, you start losing too much fidelity in the voice, and it slightly muffles it. So like this receiver can, on AM mode, it can do 12, 6, and 3 kilohertz. So it could do 3 kilohertz and it can do 6, but it can't do 4. But it was never designed to get weak shortwave signals. Like I said, that's not what they made it for. They didn't care. This one, that's all it was designed for. Consumer shortwave listening. And so if you're out shopping for a radio and you say, I can only afford to get one and I want, the best one I can get, this would be very high on your list, or it should be very high on your list, because of the quality sync and because it's got a true 4 kilohertz filter. Now, I'm going to qualify that by saying, because everyone's going to be like, oh, Texan has that. All of the new Texans, the new 2200, the 501, the 990s, the 880s, they all got 4 kilohertz filters and syncs. Yeah, but none of them work. Okay, you can't get sync to work on a Texan. All right, maybe the old 660s, maybe, but they still sucked. All right, don't kid yourself. And Texans, the engineers at Texan don't know how to rate a bandwidth filter. 4 kilohertz bandwidth filter means +2 or -2 kilohertz for a total band spread of 4 kilohertz. When Texan shows you on their bandwidth, when you push the BW button on a Texan and it says 6 kilohertz, it's because Texan are idiots. They mean +6 and -6, so that's actually a 12 kilohertz filter. Why do you think Texans go all the way down to 2.3 kilohertz? They might even go down to 1 or 1.5 kilohertz on AM. Who would do that? They can do it because they have to double the filter, because they don't know how to rate the filter. All right? But even then, if you use their 2.3 filter, that's technically 4.6, and it's a cheap computer DSP filter. It ain't no Watkin Johnson DSP filter. All right? But this isn't about Texans. All right? But don't kid yourself into thinking that that's a great radio. This is a great radio. This is a great radio, but it's not the greatest radio for shortwave listening, although it is awesome for it. You got to have a quality sync, and you got to have a 4 kilohertz bandwidth filter. Kenwood doesn't have either. You get a 6 kilohertz bandwidth filter, but I've got the upgraded 6 deluxe 6 kilohertz filter in there, and it's awesome, okay? But the next smaller filter is 2.4 kilohertz, too small for AM. All right, and I don't know why Kenwood did that. And I searched high and low, trying to find a filter setup to go 6.4 and then something smaller. And it's not practical. You cannot do it on a Kenwood, not easily, not unless you're an electrical engineer and want to redesign the whole damn radio. All right, and Kenwood doesn't know nothing about sync. All right, nothing. I don't think there is a Kenwood with a sync. Drake, R8B, B for Bravo. I don't own the R8, I don't own R7, I don't own the 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1 either. But I got this one, and this one is awesome. It's not cheap. I think a good one is like somewhere between $1,200 and $1,500, something like that. But they're worth it. Well worth it. Doesn't look like much just looking at it, but for shortwave listening, it's probably better than an 8711 Watkins Johnson. Probably. For shortwave listening to distant broadcasts. Although the Watkins Johnson 8711 does have a good sync and it can get you a 4 kilohertz filter. The problem then becomes, some of the other amenities, like, the preamp on a WJ it's not super strong, and the attenuation is not super, this offers a little more, but it's catered to shortwave listening. Anyway, I'm rambling on. I should probably be sleeping. But let's listen to some more stuff. All right. And unfortunately, behind my desk here, there's a wall, and I can't back up enough to get both radios in frame. Six kilohertz lets a little bit more static and crap in. 2.3 makes it just sound like they're underwater or muffled. Let's flip the perpetual motion machine on this one. Oh wait, that's all we can do. Okay. So we just had signals at 80, 180. 185 and 190. And with this 4 kilohertz filter, this Drake can separate them all. The selectivity is awesome. All right, let's try that on the Teletron. So let's go L6190. Sounds great. Six kilohertz, 3 kilohertz. There's a little squirreliness. I could hear some crap in the background, and I don't know if it's coming from 190 or 180. So 180 and 190 on this sound totally awesome. Let's go back to the Drake. $190, awesome. $180, awesome. The Drake's, now I can still hear some in the background. If you listen close, just like on the Teletron, I can hear that squeaky voice in the background on occasion. I think it's coming from 180. But let's hit the sync and see what happens. No, I'm still getting a little bit of override from one of the other stations, just like on the Teletron. Now the problem here is this has a passband. Problem here is where are you going to slide to? A passband slides your passband one way or the other to try to get away from that interfering signal. Problem is I got a signal 5 kilohertz this way and I got a signal 5 kilohertz this way. So it's like you're trapped. Where the hell are you going to go? But I think for what it is, 3 signals, each 5 kilohertz apart, I think both of these radios are doing a great job. I like the 4 kilohertz filter. It lets in a little bit more fidelity, and it only lets in about the same amount of bullshit from the other signal 5 kilohertz on either side of it. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of that. All right, what else can we listen to? Oh, by the way, just to show you, so I got to go a little crazy sideways. There's the Stridesburg, okay? That red box is a power transverter, I think is what it's called. And if you see it on the front, it converts 110 volt house current to 230 volt or 200 whatever, because this Teletron only works on, it's either 220 or 240. There's not an option to run this on 120 volts. So I need that converter. And then you see that red light behind it? There. That's a separate power strip just for these 2 radios. 1, 2. I plug them into that so that when I'm not listening to them, I can turn the power off to that power strip, because these radios, because they're so old, they're probably made in the 90s. Hell, that Kenwood might even have been made in the late 80s. I just don't trust the power transformers being able to be as good as they were when they were brand new. And I don't like to run power to the radios, even though the radios are switched off. All right. Actually, on the Kenwood, if you do that, if you leave the power sent to the radio, but you turn it off, and even if you turn the display off so it's totally off, if you put your ear on top of the radio, you can actually hear the mildest, I don't know if hum is the right word, but you can actually hear something. You can't hear it if you're sitting 3 feet away from it. But to me, that means there's something going on inside of it through the power system. What do you call it? The power supply. So that's why it's always a good idea to kill the power totally to these old radios if you're not using them. And I do that to all of my radios. Everything is on switches. So, anyway. All right. What else can we listen to? Let's just try a couple more things and I'll cut you all loose. Let's see if my girlfriend's home. Probably not. Oh, she is. Strength meter, tuning indicator. So I just put it on slow AGC, and I put it on own Traeger. Own means one, and I'm assuming that's for sideband. 100% Traeger is assuming 2 sidebands or the full AM signal. Again, all these controls are totally in German, so. That's it for that. I just wanted to fire both these radios up, do a little spin around, talk a little bit about the difference between shortwave listening and using a radio for other stuff. So all right, so just to let me add on to I was talking about how this is a great shortwave listening radio because it's got the sync, because it's got a 4 kilohertz filter. This is an awesome radio for finding bad guys, building bombs, whatever the heck military does with radios, okay? Now, let's talk about ham radios, all right? So if you go to what's that guy's website where he rates all the radios and everyone thinks it's the be-all and end-all of what the best receivers are? Is it Fisher or is it something else? Anyway, it's like for years, the Yaesu FTDX 101 was like number 1. All right. But you got to read all the fine print. Okay. His rankings are based on SSB signals that are super close together. And that's the only thing his rankings are best on. Now, he does give a rating for different things. But if you read the fine print, that 1 to 100 rating or whatever it is, for all 100 radios, the number 1 radio had the best close SSB signal. There's a term for it, separation or whatever it's called, but that's the only thing that those radios are rated on. They're not, I don't even know if that guy knows where the shortwave bands are, okay? It has nothing to do with listening to shortwave. And I owned an FTDX 101, and I couldn't get rid of it fast enough because I'm a shortwave listener. I'm not a ham. All right? A lot of ham radios are really, really good receivers, mostly just the ICOMs. All right, Yaesu doesn't know their ass from a hole in the ground when it comes to AM operation. But I've gone through this many times before. They neuter their radios. They take away all of the controls when you switched it from SSB to AM. It's like it's a totally different radio. Anyway, ICOM doesn't do that. And that's why ICOMs are great. But those ratings are only based on close together SSB signals. If you want to listen to, what was that, 6.180, 6.185, and 6.190, or 6.600 voice of the people, okay, you need a good sync. You need a 4 kilohertz filter, all right? 4 kilohertz on a ham radio is like 4 million kilohertz, all right? For hams. But anyway, my point is radios are made for specific, when you try to get into the best of the best and very fine applications and, oh, I got to have the best, I got to have the best. Well, the radios are built around their specific thing that they're going to be used for. We are lucky in that there are some radios that can do everything well. The WJ8711, the Ten-Tech 340, because they have they have all of the filters and they have good syncs. So they do a great job. But they're not focused just on close together SSB stuff like hams want to do. Anyway, use the right radio for the right job, okay? If you're a ham, more power to you, okay? I have no desire to be a ham, no desire to talk to anybody on a radio. And the only time I listen to SSB signals is just to see if I can get them. That's it. Oh, it works. Okay, let's go listen to some AM. If you're a shortwave listener or a DXer, shortwave or even just medium wave AM broadcast or something, you cannot beat this radio. You can't. If you get a good one that works properly, you cannot. I hesitate to say it's the best radio ever made because there's a lot that are as good. But for just basic SWL and DXing, you really can't beat it. This is a Rolls Royce. I mean, how many radios have the perpetual motion machine? And I already showed this on the other video, but I'll show it to you again in case this is the first time you're seeing this. Let's go to 6180 AM. All right. Let's find out if whoever's broadcasting this, if their transmitter's actually on frequency. It's pretty close. See this AFC button? Automatic frequency control. In FM, a lot of portable radios used to have that in FM, still do probably. And what it would do is you turn it on and it would bring you to the center of the carrier. Well, it was never used in AM, all right? I own 100 AM radios, 100 high-end AM radios, and this is the only one that will do AFC on AM. There may be a handful of others out there in the world somewhere. I don't own them. You hit AFC and it brings you to the center of the carrier. So this frequency or this transmitter is 50 hertz off. All right? Drake can't do that. I'm not sure how important that is on a AM signal, we're listening to it with a 6 kilohertz bandwidth, so who cares if you're 50 hertz either way? Who cares if you're 200 or 300 or 1,000 hertz either way? It doesn't matter. But it can do it. Anyway. All right. That's it. We're 30 minutes in. I'm talking to myself right now. So, all right. Thanks for hanging out.